Viral Media Network presents the third season of the Sam Jack podcast. I'm not a professional, but wait, I am. Today's guest, Leah T. She is a musician, teacher, and all about that van life. Welcome to the Sam Jack podcast. Hey, oh, look at you. You're very pro. Look at that.
Am I?
But you're not in the van.
Yeah.
You're in a dwelling. You're in a terrestrial dwelling.
Do you want to know about my terrestrial dwelling yet?
Sure.
Are we jumping in? What's the I don't know. What's the protocol?
Well, that happened last interview I did. Just because, I was catching up with the person I was interviewing, Charlize, and I think I'm going to put it in, but yeah, it can be added in. I'm going to do a formal introduction as part of the show, but
it's just happening.
Yeah.
We're just, because there probably is a lot of catching up, I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
I saw you when I was in high school, but yes, I am in a bedroom.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sound braggy, but I do have a bedroom in a house right now.
That's good. Yeah. So, yeah, we definitely want to talk, because I was not to let out the security code, but the password for this meeting to record this interview is van life. So I thought you'd appreciate it. I don't know if you saw that.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even have to enter. I didn't even have to enter a password.
That's what's so silly. They have a password, and then you just click the link and you're right in, right? So
oh yeah. There was just a Zoom lady warning me. She was like, your meeting is being recorded, just so you know. And I was like, cool. I'm paraphrasing. It wasn't quite like that, but something. And then I got scared all of a sudden. But
well, also the tone of your voice was a lot more friendlier and warm, which, it's probably because you're a musician, but also a lot more warmer than an automatic thing. But
well, good. I have this microphone that I use when I teach Zoom lessons just like this. And I set it up when I'm traveling. Sometimes I'll set up other places. And I set up at my mom's house one time, and she was like, is that just for looks? I was like, no, mother, what do you think I do with my life?
Right.
Do you think I'm a real working musician or not? Or do I just have fancy plastic things that I set up so I look cool?
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
This is functional.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, that's a condenser mic. It picks up vocals very well, and obviously the diaphragm around it, the mesh part is covering the mic. The actual element of the mic is inside, as you probably know, but it's all spatially designed, not only the mesh part to protect it, but also, it's at a certain distance. It's curved like that, as opposed to being right close to the element for, reasons of,
you know more than I do.
Please.
And you can do ASMR stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I'll tell you a quick story about why you can tell me a story about, because again, Leah, for those that don't know, travels the country, probably into Canada and Mexico too, in a van, totally converted, bed, all that stuff. She's even got her musical stuff in there. So we're going to talk about that. But I do want to hear that story. I'm at home because I try to do this at my studio. I share a studio in the city, and I got the perfect shot. It was like this, but it's got, the sound pads in the back, and I got some nice LED lights to make it all colorful and stuff. But the internet is shit there. So it's I did an interview, and it was it would freeze, the guest would freeze, and then I'd start to ask the next question, and then they'd sort of mid-sentence be like, oh, and stop their answer. So we have to re-record that. So until I get good internet.
This is why it's been so hard to connect with each other, because while I was on the road, I couldn't anticipate where I was going to be. And I always have to plan to have good cell service so I can use my hotspot, so my connection is good. And sometimes I just don't know. So it's hard. It was hard for me to plan ahead very much, know that everything's going to be totally reliable. However, last week when we were going to do this, I was all set up in the van. So I was excited to be in that space. But now, like I said, no brag, but I am in a home. It's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we actually, that was, I think that this is the third reschedule, because originally you were actually in the San Francisco Bay Area where I live, and we were going to do it in person.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, which would have been great, because we could have done it in the studio and not had to do it over the internet, just recorded it in person, and then we wouldn't have to worry about the internet. And then we would have a nice space to maybe you even have a little performance time. But we might still have that if we're lucky, if I play my cards right. But
I'm sitting at my keyboard.
Oh, perfect. There we go.
This is the regular setup. And in fact, this configuration is just like essentially a drawer that pulls out from under my countertop in my van. So I just pulled out this entire drawer and brought it up here. And then when I'm not using this, like, I mean, you can't see the whole thing, but when I'm not using this like a keyboard, there's a tabletop that like covers the whole thing too.
That's
so then
awesome.
I just use it as a tabletop. So right now it's like half tabletop, half keyboard workspace. And so it feels like I'm in my van. It's a little, but it's been cold in Nashville. I'm in Nashville now and it's been cold. So I don't want to be in my van in 25, 30 degrees. So.
Is there snow?
Yeah, there has been snow in the past couple weeks. I was snowed in for a couple days, like, cause I was parked in a driveway, like on a sheet of ice, and I just couldn't get out. And my van is trash in the snow, but that's okay. I had nothing to do. I was dog sitting. I was just hanging out with a little baby dog and watching Queer Eye. It was great.
That's sweet. So let's back up here, because I want to start. I want to give a formal intro, but also too, so I don't mess it up. How do you pronounce your last name?
Toussaint.
Toussaint. I knew the G was silent. It's French, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But that's why I just go by Leah T.
Yeah.
It's also just really, I mean,
especially if you're in Nashville, like New Orleans, they could get it. New Orleans, they speak French.
Right. Well, and I don't always embrace the Frenchiness of it. Right. So like we grew up saying Toussaint, and that's what my family says, Toussaint. But sometimes I like to just put the little Frenchy twang on it.
Right.
And yeah, but so Leah T for ease. You can't very well tell someone like, go to leahtoussaint.com. They'd be like, what even is that? So Leah T, that's it.
Yeah. The way you said you pronounce it growing up definitely has a ring to an air of Minnesotan accent.
Ode to Minnesota.
You're from Minnesota. What part of Minnesota are you from again?
New Brighton-ish, northern suburbs. And then I went to college in St. Paul. So I was there for a while. Right.
So suburbs of Minneapolis, right? Like, so maybe we'll backtrack. That's how I met you. I went out with, it was my girlfriend at the time, now wife. She had gone to this camp when she was your age, camp counselor in Mandaree. It's an Indian reservation, Catholic summer camp. And I had met you and all your other friends. You were friends with some of them, friends with others, right? Or was it just random high schoolers from the area?
It was kind of a blend of like a couple high schools, mine at Totino Grace, and then a couple of high schools in Bloomington. So it was a lot of the Bloomington kids, and I just became friends with them from that trip. What year did you go?
I can't even remember. I want to say it was like 2012, 2011, 2012.
Yeah, it's kind of all a blur. I think I went like 8 summers in a row.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. It's a great experience. I mean, there's a lot of mixed emotions that I felt, because I didn't grow up religious, so and especially Catholic. So I think there's a number of variant degrees of how religious people are that go there, and some people really embrace the faith part, and some people just use it as an opportunity to meet other cultures and be out in the countryside. Like I had never been, as a California boy, like I'd never been to North Dakota. I always thought it was so flat. The rolling hills, beautiful, breezy grassland, just amazing, but also just, this kind of socioeconomic thing of like, we're going in from a very, at least, from my perspective, very privileged, point. And maybe it's just because in the last 5 years, we've all gotten more woke to this stuff, but, you know what I mean? And then, but you are giving them an opportunity to, what you bring to the table is like all this other stuff outside of their world that they get exposed to, I think. And, that's what I kind of took out of it, but I'd be interested to know, now that you're older, I believe you're in your mid-20s, right?
Thank you. Yeah. I'm about to be 31.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, there you go. Well, you're there, mid 20s to 30s. You know how it is. Once you pass 25, you're just an adult. Like no one really keeps track, right? Like,
it's all a blur. And like I was actually, sorry to digress, but I was
please.
Listening to someone talk about how turning 30 is like really daunting. And to me, it's not. But now I'm like 31. Now we're in it. Like, I think I was also saying 30 for a while when I was 28, 29. I was just like, let's round up. Like, it's easier. And now I'm like, wait, 31. We're committed to this
Yeah.
decade now.
Yeah.
So that one's a little more daunting to me than 30. So I'm gonna have to like start practicing. I'll just start rounding up now so I can be good at it in a couple weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, every year you sort of like, oh, I'm this old now. And then you sort of feel like when I turned 40, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to start turning gray and I'm going to be corroding. Like I still like, I definitely more like, you know, your body starts aching a little bit more and all those kind of things. But like,
Right.
it's really just a mindset, you know what I mean? So, also too, you know, you keep a good, you know, exercise routine too. You'll stay young. That's key too. You stay active, you stay healthy, you know, healthy living, and also just, you know, like, you know, the creative work that you do. If you find some sort of thing that you do that keeps you going, I think that helps as well, you know.
Yeah. And let's not even talk about hangovers then at that point. Healthy living would probably help with not having those. But now that I'm in Nashville, I'm like, how do you not how do you go out and not drink I don't know. It's a
Yeah,
weird life, but
you do end up drinking a little less, but then the nights that you end up drinking, yeah, I've definitely had those mornings where I'm like, dude, why am I having such a hangover? It's really just as long as you get enough sleep. I think that's what my key is. Sleep and water is what helps me these days. But yeah, I end up just drinking less. Like I have a couple beers in the night, and I also don't go out as much as I used to. But
you're so smart. I've had nights recently where
smart.
I'm like, oh guys, I'm not drinking. I'm just having a Tecate. This is my my off night. So
right.
I'll just have a lager, but it doesn't work.
And then you can't just have one, right? Then you're like, oh gosh, like
no. But that's a whole nother issue. Yep. We old, we're aching, hangovers suck, but it's fun. It's also fun because we have like a little bit more authority and power and life experience. So I don't know, happy to have that under my belt a little bit.
So speaking of life experience, let's go back to the camp and just like sort of where you're at then. Obviously you're still in high school, but like, you know, because I think I just became Facebook friends with you, and then we just sort of casually kept in touch through that, but like we haven't actually like caught up. So I mean, I know it's a lot of to go over, but like I know you were definitely singing and doing songs at the camp. Like how musically, like at that time, were you like, yeah, I'm going to go to music school, I'm going to get a music degree, I'm going to be a musician, or did you have another path? And then you're like, well, no, I want to follow this music thing. Like, how did that work out?
I knew that I wanted music to be a part of my adult life and future, but I didn't really know in what capacity. And in fact, I was applying to colleges to be in journalism. And then I just ended up hearing about this music school, McNally Smith in downtown St. Paul. It doesn't exist anymore. And I ended up getting a full ride to it. And so I was like,
Beautiful.
I'd rather go to free music college than really expensive non-music college, I guess. Even though I was also itching to like get out of town. I never anticipated staying in the Twin Cities, you know, once I had my freedom. But no, I was really grateful to be there. And quite honestly, that's partly how I like the reason why I'm in Nashville now is because there's just a huge pipeline from all those like St. Paul, Minneapolis musicians that ended up here. So I just feel like I'm having a big college reunion in my 30th year of life. But
you just go right down the Mississippi River.
Yeah, they just like they get an inner tube and just start floating their way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sure that you could say that, you know, having the formal training at the music school and having that be your focus, where like, you know, I don't know if you had to also take electives of like non-music classes, if they have any of that curriculum, but like, and I'm sure you were in band in high school and all that stuff. So you knew music and you know you were studying music, but do you feel like that was the most important part of music school, or actually just being in the environment where everyone is a musician and a lot of people are like, you know, say the lead violinist from their high school, or like, you know what I mean? You're at that. So you have, right. You like cream rises to the top. So when you're around all those people, do you feel like that environment was more beneficial, or do you feel like it was more about the actual classes and more formal?
No, I think you hit it right on with the second scenario. I think just being surrounded by all these people who are also trying to accomplish this like lofty music goal is really awesome. And I was afraid it was going to feel competitive, but it didn't. Like, it really felt like we were all trying to get each other to that next level. And that goes, I mean, that the same thing goes with like our professors. You know, our professors became people that we worked with, like they're real living working musicians in the city and in the country and the world, you know? So like that was super beneficial to just have those connections and contacts. And you could certainly go to that school and do really poorly if you want to do really poorly, you know? So it's kind of like what you put into it, using your resources, using your connections. So yeah, I think it was more about being surrounded by everyone trying to do that. So I loved it.
Yeah. And did you have opportunities outside of while you were in college to perform and play a little cafes or whatever? Was that, to be able to play with other students, like, hey, let's form a band outside of class kind of thing?
Yeah, I was playing a lot in the Twin Cities with my own solo project. And then when I was 19, I linked up with this country band that was all kids from my college and started. I'm truly not interested in country music, but I was like interested in just getting out and playing. It was really funny being 19 and a keyboardist of all things in a country band. It was like,
Yeah,
that
that's
was a
not a
little goofy,
traditional.
but like, no, but you
Yeah.
know, so I felt very auxiliary, but also had a lot of fun doing it. And we were playing every Friday and Saturday. And then the funny story is all those guys live in Nashville now and are like properly pursuing the country music dream. So they're still like my really good friends.
That's awesome.
It's just not my genre. So yeah, I was playing quite a bit in the Twin Cities. And I haven't been booking so much when I've been making trips back there because it's been so quick, but I spent the first couple years, well, because then I moved to Seattle, and I spent a couple years in Seattle, like making trips to the Twin Cities and basically being able to pay my way by booking shows while I was out there because people still wanted to come see me. And yeah, so
That's
I'm
awesome.
glad to still have those connections there.
That's great. So the name of this podcast is the Sam Jack Podcast, subtitled "I'm not a professional, but wait, I am," because it's all about
I
the
love
creative.
that. I love that so much.
Because that's kind of what I want to explore that idea more, is like, it's like not really having a day job, and being in my world is more like crew member, techie. I don't do as much live stuff, but in your world it'd be like, the sound tech or whatever, right on stage, the A2, the mixer, whatever. But you go from gig to gig, and the saying is like you're only as good as your last gig. And but also, like, did you want, because I know some people are like, well, I can move to Los Angeles and be like a studio musician at Disney, or my goal is to be in an orchestra or do something that's like more of a, even though it's in music, it's more of a full-time sure, or just start teaching or whatever. Did those teachers that were like also performing and had, maybe they were part-time associate professors and not like tenured or whatever, and you sort of saw that in them, or like what kind of gave you the idea of like, oh yeah, like I don't really have to have a full-time, I can kind of do this gig freelance thing? Or were you still looking for a full-time employment at that point?
Um, I guess I was always in my adult life, I was always trying to work in music in some capacity, but for a long time I had the service industry gig to supplement, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't until maybe like 2 years into me living in Seattle, so 2017 maybe, that I had to give up all the service industry stuff because I was like traveling or touring or playing enough where I couldn't actually do it. And that felt like somewhat of an arrival, and it was still sort of like a hodgepodge of freelance gigs, like I still teach piano lessons. At the time I was like playing at a church every weekend. I was accompanying a high school choir. I was playing with regularly, probably with like 5 different bands in Seattle, including my own project. So it's just all those things sort of started to fit together to create like a proper sustainable life. And I was like, I've done it, kind of, I'm technically a full-time musician, and that feels nice. So
Thank you so much for listening. This is Sam Jack, your host. Make sure to subscribe to us. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Sam Jack Podcast. Thank you so much. You can find us on YouTube. Our channel is Viral Media Network 415. The playlist is the Sam Jack Podcast. I'm not a professional, but wait, I am. Check out all the other great playlists on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the interview. Yeah. I mean, that's how I was for the longest time. I was a substitute teacher, and and it was great because it was wasn't the same hours, but the same kind of thing. I could take work or leave work depending on my availability and what I could do, or how I could fit it in. And then slowly you sort of wean that off, and you might be at a point where you're, in your case, getting a lot of music gigs, but still have to, wait tables once or twice a week kind of thing to sort of supplement, right? Like we had this conversation on another podcast I had where some people never give it up and always have a side hustle, or, it's like right now it's 50% freelance of what I want to do and 50% waiting tables or whatever, right? Oh, I want to get to like an 80-20, and then, another guest I had on, they don't want to be completely freelance. They want the stability of the 9 to 5 and then do their side hustle as music, or in her case, she was a DJ, but, so I guess it all depends on, what level of, commitment you want to have, or I guess being comfortable in that sort of unknown of like, well, gigs cancel, or like I've booked out for the month, but there's some holes next month kind of thing, right? And we'll see if things come up, and all things come up last minute, or you have to reshift, or things cancel, right? So how have you been able to adjust to that? And obviously we'll get into the whole COVID talk, but like, basically just like, right, like it's feast or famine, right?
Well, so it's been an interesting couple years to be able to comment on that. When I became a full-time musician, like I was saying, I kind of then considered teaching to be my side hustle. And just because like, I know that it's so I teach private piano lessons. I know that it's something that I'm good at. I know my students like me. I like my students, but like that for me would have been the first thing to go. I only ever taught like Monday and Tuesday nights because those aren't really gig nights. Otherwise, I was too busy, but I just like formed these relationships with my students, and I was like, all right, I like this enough. And then the crazy thing is, when the pandemic happened, I lost everything I did except for teaching, because I was able to do that exactly like this.
Virtually,
remotely. Yeah. So it was so funny that, again, that did feel like my side hustle. And then it turned into literally the only thing I had to sustain myself, because everything else I did required people gathering, like playing at church, playing at high school, like all those things were shut down. And like
physical live events. Yeah.
I was on tour on March 11th, like we turned around March 11th or 14th or whatever. And we're like, well, guess we got to go home. South by Southwest is canceled. And then every venue followed suit. As soon as South by canceled, they're like, oh yeah, okay, this thing is real. So we turned around. And so that opportunity was gone. And I still, teaching has been like the one and only thing that has kind of kept me afloat through the last couple of years. So
yeah. So I mean, I guess that's a good lesson, is that you don't want to give up completely your side hustle. You want something to fall back on in case things happen, because I don't think any of us foresaw that, live events, like that's why we always say, like, because I do a lot of sports broadcasting, like, oh, you're never going to get rid of sports. Like sports is what we use to like distract us from everything else that's going on, right? I mean, music too, in a lot of ways too, right? But it's like, oh, they're never going to shut down the NFL, right? Or like shut down the NBA, but it's like, no, they did, like, right? Like,
yeah.
And I had a very similar experience, and I think I think you just said it, where it's like, you got to be able to, be flexible and be like, okay, well, now that I can, and then eventually we figured out how to do concerts virtually, right? So Were you already doing the van life nomadic thing, or was the pandemic the thing that shifted that and you're like, I'm gonna go for it, and this is gonna be, I have contacts in Seattle, the pipeline in Nashville. Like, had you made friends in other parts of the country, or did that kind of develop as you went along?
Great question. Great big question. I can let you in on the timeline. Van van life, hashtag van life was not on my radar until the pandemic happened. And so it's kind of a twofer. Pandemic happened and I got kicked out of my home that I loved. And so I was sort of in this like in between staying with a friend, while I figured out what I wanted to do. Cause I was in a home that I didn't think I had to leave for years. Like I was out there when I had no other jobs going on, like I was out there landscaping. I was like gutting our back shack and turning it into like a recording and rehearsal space, like
Wow.
I was in that home. I love that home. When I got that news that morning, I was like at Home Depot picking out new paint for the living room, like I was full nesting.
Wow.
And then I had to leave. And it was so weird to be in Seattle, a city that is very, very expensive to live in, to not have any of these jobs anymore, and to be looking at rent and being like, I don't need to be here. Like, I'm not working in the city. I don't need to be living in the city and spending this amount of money. And I I wanted to travel. And I thought the only way that I could like safely do that was in my own little autonomous box. So I like bought an empty cargo van and hired a guy to do the conversion like to my specifications, with this little basically mobile studio set up. And I have like a toilet and a shower and everything I need to be, again, like totally autonomous in this little box. Cause I mean, we still don't know what's going on with
I know.
the pandemic and everything,
Yeah.
but like, and this virus. But at that time it was like, if I don't have to be using gas station toilets and like staying at places to shower or whatever, that feels the safest to me. So yeah, I got in my box last December and I pieced out and I told my student, well, we were all still remote. So I just continued to teach remotely. Some of them didn't even know that I left, to be honest. So I was just started teaching from my van.
And you had a hotspot, so remotely wherever you go, you can pick up a boosted signal, right? So
Yeah. And surprisingly, it worked really well. I
yeah.
switched to Verizon. This isn't a commercial, but I did. I switched to Verizon and I don't know, I was getting good enough service to like run Zoom calls and stuff. So I was really happy with that because that could have sort of ruined everything. But
Yeah.
it worked out to the point where like I I came back to Seattle in the summer and told my students like, hey, this is going to continue to be a thing and I probably won't even continue to live in Seattle. So if you desire to be in person with someone, like great, great. I don't want to keep you from that, but it's so funny because a lot of my kids students at this point are back in physical school. So
Mhm.
having screen time with me isn't as like overwhelming because sometimes it was just like so much screen time to like engage with. And then my adult students are like, cool, I don't have to drive during rush hour. So, I mean, I've maintained all those students because they're like, we like you and this is working. So I'm happy about that.
That's good. That's really nice. And I was gonna say, now I forgot my question.
Yeah,
It'll
I was
come back to me,
blabbing.
but um, oh, I was just gonna say that, like, just getting back to your van life thing, like, excuse me, I love your post because it's always like, oh, let's open the door and see where we're at. And sometimes you're on the coast and you just like, this is my view for the night, and it's like the beautiful California coast, or you're like in some countryside, or you're just recently in the Southwest, and
Uh-huh.
I think you went around Bryce Canyon and all this kind of great, grateful stuff. So how is that like, we talk about like mindset, and it's a lot easier when you're going to these places. And if you aren't a 9 to 5, or you are a freelancer and staying in one area, it's a little different. But we always talk about being in the right headspace to be creative and be musicians or whatever. So how do you feel that just doing that and this exploring and also seeing different parts of the countryside, but also meeting different people, and that, how does that help with your creativity and your music?
Great question. I think I
Oh, I think I lost you there.
are we frozen?
Oh yeah, I was just
Oh,
gonna say, I think you just froze. Sorry.
okay.
We're back on.
Okay. Let me start that all over.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great question. Yeah, I feel like I've had a massive identity crisis in the past couple of years, just trying to like understand who I am as an artist and what I want to create and what I can create. And but there's also like there's been just a lot of sadness induced by the pandemic and this like whole change of lifestyle. And I was hoping that traveling would be this time for like divine inspiration and creativity. And I'm going to be honest, like it wasn't. I kind of just gave myself permission to fully check out, and I'm okay with it, because I think there also is this, like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to continue to create and always be doing things and always
Produce.
be putting things. Yeah, exactly. And
Produce content.
yeah, and I let myself not do that and say that it was okay. And so that's why I honestly like, I'm happy that you reached out. And then part of me is like, what are we going to talk about? I've had this identity crisis. I don't even know what I'm trying to do with my life and my career and my music, and it's changing every day. But I think this past year of traveling is gonna, I'm gonna realize it's benefit to my creativity at some point, but I'm kind of still in it.
Right.
And so it hasn't been until this past week where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to like kind of put both feet on the ground and figure out my next move in my career. 2 weeks ago, I like landed in Nashville intentionally as a place where I'm going to reside. So,
Okay.
and it's not like, it's been very different because a lot of people like move to a city and beforehand they like find a home and they find a job or some jobs and know what they're going to do. But I literally just like rolled up and I'm like, now I'm going to try and do all that stuff. So truly there was a week of me just kind of like sitting around and trying to get like my space feeling nice, and also just like still continuing to like check out a little bit because it's daunting to just land in this new city and be like, all right, guns a-blazing, here we go. So I kind of took a week to like adjust. And then the following week, kind of right now, I've been going out, meeting people, exploring performance opportunities. So it's just been wild, but I'm officially off the road for the time being.
Okay.
Like this is my home and my address. I have an address. My friend is no longer collecting my mail in Tacoma, Washington.
Oh, perfect. So you're not, so I thought you were staying with someone until you actually found your own place now, or a room in a house to share, or?
Yeah. It's still, this is a like temporary month-to-month situation. Cause again, I wanted to like be here and to decide where I wanted to live. I was hoping maybe I would even meet people that maybe I would end up living with. So as of now, I have a place that I'm moving into in April more permanently. Met some girls and some other musicians and in this beautiful home in East Nashville. And so that's kind of the plan. In the meantime, I'm in like a furnished space because I still have all my furniture in Seattle.
Gotcha.
Like I came with my van. I don't even have my main rig, This is like my little like non-weighted 61 key.
It's not a full 88. Yeah, okay.
No,
It looked like a full 88, but
no, she's
66
at
is
home.
close. I mean, the way they make controllers these days, these key, you would know, like they make these little like 40-inch or 44 keys or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you can shift octaves, but like
But if you're a piano player at heart, you need a full 88, you know.
Yeah, the thing that I miss is that it's not weighted. So sometimes like if I'm trying to do some proper like piano playing, it doesn't have the same response as like an actual piano.
Yeah.
But it's been getting the job done, I guess. And it only weighs 10 pounds.
That's
So for something that lives in a van and lives in a drawer that pulls out above my lap, like for it to be 10 pounds is really nice because my main
nice.
rig is like 55.
Okay.
So
So
it's
I
really
actually came up my wife sells vintage stuff, and so she's at auctions a lot.
oh my
So I'm gonna
gosh.
shout her out real quick. Check out the dark dish. But so she got me on the bug a little bit because I have some collectibles I've been selling on eBay and stuff. So I was at the auction and I bought a organ for $15.
Okay.
It's non-electric. It's a pedal organ.
You're pumping it.
Yeah. Do you know about those organs?
Uh-huh.
So we have it in our garage. I'm trying to figure out what we're gonna do with it, but it's fun. Like it's a wooden, it's actually not that heavy. It's got handlebars on the side to like wheel it around. But also I bought for cheaper a Chickering baby grand piano for $5 in the auction.
Where are you housing this?
Well, I haven't picked it up yet. That's the issue. So if you
People
know
sell
anyone that
pianos for nothing.
I know.
I just need space.
Yeah, exactly. So if you know anyone that wants a baby grand in Nashville, I'll drive it out for you.
Oh my gosh.
You just got to pay.
Let's think about that. Well, I learned that I am about to acquire a Fender Rhodes from my
Nice.
friend. So
Oh,
that's kind of going to
classic.
be like the home
And those
the
are
home
heavy. Those are
setup.
big. Yeah.
They
That's
are
awesome.
heavy, but I'm very excited because
Oh, that's gonna be great for you.
I spent college playing that exact keyboard and he's kind of doing a different life path now and he's like I just want it to get played more. Will you can I long term loan it to you and or maybe give it to you? And I'm like,
I love that.
yes. Yes. So if you need it to live at my house, fine. I accept. But I got to get it in LA. So
Oh, okay. Well, there you
I have
go.
to make a trip
Well, you have
out there.
contacts out in the Bay Area and LA too. So if you know anyone out here that is looking for a baby grand, you know,
You know what? I'll think about
maybe.
that actually.
Okay, great.
Yeah, let me think about that.
And I'm not really.
That's awesome.
I'm actually just. I'm not really gonna charge because I got it for $5. I'm not trying to make money off it. I'm just asking them to pay for the shipping transportation costs, which I got a rough quote locally in the Bay Area. It's going to be about 250, 300, which I thought it was going to be way
For a
more
baby
than that.
grand?
Yeah, that
That's
sounds pretty cheap, right?
yeah, absolutely.
They said it depends on, of course, you know, the X factor is like in San
Stairs.
Francisco, the stairs and the hills and all that stuff. So we'll see. But
That's not a lot of money.
yeah. So but let's get back musically because you said I always thought you did play a little bit of country music and you obviously still do with other bands, but talk about like your sound and the Leah T band and how you been able to form your I'm sorry if that's not the official name, but
Well,
but yeah, how did you after college when you started playing and you started just defining your own sound and you know performing as you know yourself and your band, like how did that come about?
yeah, I mean, that's always been something that's been very difficult for me to define while I'm in it and a part of it. I like to ask people like what they hear and experience or what genre they'd put me in. And the most responses I've gotten, and I'm going with it, is soul pop. So I'm in this soul pop genre, you know, it's not like straight ahead poppy, like it's a little more, it's got some like jazzy influences, and then my voice is a little more like soulful, bluesy. And I I guess I really started to make some more moves when I was in Seattle, assembled my band together to put another EP together. And when I am with the band, we call ourselves Leah T and the Baked Goods. But everything I release is under Leah T. I just like snacks. I don't know, baked goods. So yeah, everything I put out is under Leah T, and I hope to keep doing more of that in this city. But I have such a like misconstrued view from the inside, like, I don't know what's cool. I don't know what people like. Like, I need feedback. I need response. So like, it's good being in a music city where I'm hearing that from people, because I'm just too on the inside of my own project. Part of me is like, why would anyone like this? And then part of me is like, this is dope. It's so, I'm clearly an artist, right? Like
Right.
this is how we talk.
It's that, well, no, it is that internal struggle of like, this is what I'm hearing. This is what I want to get out there. And then you're like, but is it like, are other people hearing the same thing? Is this what this is what I hear for this song or this moment or whatever, but is this the same thing and then I know another artist that put in a good perspective is like, you think you want to strive for perfection, but perfection will kill the creative process, right? You'll get bogged down in trying to get it better. And in my kind of video editing, in world, it's the editing, right? Mm-hmm. You go through an edit and you're like, oh, I missed it, oh, let's cut it here better, blah, blah, blah. And that's why, like, when I do contracts with my clients, I try and be like, okay, well, you get 2 rounds of edits, not because I want to just close the project off early, but if you go too far, you end up nitpicking, right?
Yeah.
And you just kind of want to just get it out there, right? Like, I don't know. So how do you kind of strike that balance of like getting the feedback and tweaking things based on, but also just being like, well, no, this was my original vision. And I just need to go and kind of move on and process. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely tried to give myself like fewer barriers between me and like releasing something, because you can just sit with it for so long. I think the best example of that with my stuff was during the pandemic, I started making my own little music videos that I thought were really, really stupid. But I was also like, I have all this time on my hands. I'm going to mess around with my iPhone, literally just my iPhone, doing all these like single shot videos. And one that I put out was for this song called Gone. And it was me just sitting in my back shack. My iPhone was set up to really just like be on my face. And I don't know, I took a video of me singing the song, took a bunch of like stills and spliced them together, and it's all black and white. And people think it's like the coolest video, to the point where my brother's like, man, who made that video? And I was like, I did. And he's like, no, but like who like shot it and like edited it? It's like, I did. He's like, whoa. And I didn't even give myself credit when I put any of these things out, because I'm like, this is stupid and it's probably not good. And so I put down the barrier to release those, but then the feedback I got was like much better than I thought. Another one of my favorite ones was for this song called You Lied. It sounds kind of whimsical, but like the lyrics are a little angry. And I had this vision where I wanted to just like smash shit in slow motion. And I just didn't know how to accomplish that. I'm like, where can I do that? An alley and then clean it? Like, it sounds dangerous. And all I had to do was say it out loud to one person. And he goes, oh yeah, we should do that at my shop. And I'm like, are you serious? Because I want to do this, like, I want to put this out like in a few days. And he's like, wow. Yeah, tomorrow. I don't know. Let's do it at the shop. And I was like, okay. So sometimes you just have to like say your stupid idea out loud to someone, and like people will help you. Yeah. And then I got to smash it in slow motion. And that I got so much good feedback on that, because it was right in the thick of the pandemic and people watched it and they're like, oh my gosh, this is cathartic. I'm not there, but like, I feel like I am. The fact that you are like breaking things is just making me so happy. So yeah. So sometimes you just have to let yourself put it out there. And I don't know.
Thank you so much for listening. This is Sam Jack, your host. Make sure to subscribe to us. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Sam Jack Podcast. Thank you so much. You can find us on YouTube. Our channel is Viral Media Network 415. The playlist is the Sam Jack Podcast. I'm not a professional, but wait, I am. Check out all the other great playlists on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the interview. Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. I wonder if I could get that gig. I've always wondered, could I
Movie phone. Yeah,
could I be a
for movie.
voiceover actor? No.
I have a friend. He was on this podcast in the first season. Eric Bra. He's the voiceover god. He's got this huge red beard. He's like this Viking, and he's also done video game. He does a bunch of video game acting voices, and he's perfect for the show because he's just that. He's a session. He's got a little booth, and he was doing booth stuff years ago. You know, just like, oh, someone would send him something. He just recorded in his home booth, send it off. You know, yeah. So I was gonna say it was must have been very cathartic, very just like a good just sort of exercise and just getting a lot of aggression out, especially given the pandemic. But I also think that's a good lesson in being a freelancer, being a creator, being a musician, is we have a lot of self-doubt, and sometimes you just got to go for it. And then, if it doesn't hit, that's fine. There's always more music to be made. There's always another project to do. There's always another sound, or maybe I can add something or whatever. But I think
and there was a reason why I wasn't sharing a lot of what I was doing while I was doing it, because I feel like you start getting too many opinions and then you're second guessing everything. So it's like a too many cooks in the kitchen thing. And I'm like, I'm never, not like my friends don't have good advice, but I'm kind of like, if you've already put it out, no one's going to be like, you should have done this and this and this. They're going to just like receive it. But if you give it to them at this like in between stage, and they got all sorts of opinions, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what should I, then you're just second guessing everything. And so man, this isn't going to be a very good, metaphor for, I don't know. I was going to say, I've just been kind of a trigger puller this year. Like the van thing, I was just, what's a better word? Sort of reactive. I've been a little reactive and impulsive.
Instinctive.
Yeah, maybe. So I've had a lot of things where I'm like, I want to do this thing, and then I do them without really filtering it through a lot of people. And sometimes it's brought me some struggles, but usually the end result is pretty good. I don't know.
So how do you know that point when like, okay, I've worked on it enough and this is a finished, complete song, right? I mean, I'm sure it's different for every song, right? But I guess you just know, right? Like, oh, there's not enough guitar in this one, or the piano line needs a couple extra riffs or something, right? Like
it sounds like, you're asking more about like a recording and releasing situation.
Okay.
As opposed to just like a songwriting situation, like, oh,
right.
The song's done. But yeah, when you're recording and releasing something, this is like a definite time when you just have to have a stopping point. And usually you're working, especially if you're working with an engineer, producer, whomever, like they're going to help you find that limit too. So it is really helpful to have someone tell you like, you're good, no more. Because I think the artist who creates the thing could probably always do more, or find something that could sound better and something they want to fix, especially when you're recording and listening to something over and over and over. Man, there's always something you want to fix, but you gotta just like let yourself get past that. It's a learned skill in our profession. But
so I guess we'll back up a little bit, because like I guess I was conflating the two between songwriting and actually recording the music. So take us through that process of like, you have an idea, you start writing a song. Do you do lyrics first? I mean, everyone has a different process. Some people do music first. Some people kind of get a jingle in their head or whatever, or a little riff, and they're like, okay, how do I explore that into like a melody? And then I need to find a harmony. The good people find harmonies, right? The good musicians. These days, harmony is a fleeting thing, but for pop music, I should say. But I'm sure you don't surround yourself with those kind of degenerates, right? The people that don't know what a harmony is.
I surround myself with all sorts of degenerates. I'm not exclusive to the degenerates. I like the degenerates as well. I don't know what a degenerate is. What was the question? Oh, lyrics, music.
Just songwriting
Yeah.
process, just for those of us that are, because for me, like, I wish I was more of a musician than I am, and I've always, part of me kind of wishes I sort of followed that path more. So like, I'm very curious and other people that are music fans that, or other musicians are curious how other people do it. Like, take us through an idea. Like I said, do you write the lyrics first, or do you come up kind of musically first and then the lyrics come to you once the music is formed?
I'm kind of I'm kind of half and half, I guess. So sometimes I have like just a lyrical or even general sort of story idea that I want to convey, or a mood or whatever. And then other times, which I think is some of the best writing, is like copying somewhat. Like you hear a song and you're like, I want to write a song like that,
Mhm.
not note for note, but like the vibe or the feel or the groove. And or you just have, again, like a melodic or musical idea that you want to convey. um I wish I could say that I've been writing as much as I want to in the past couple of years, but I haven't. um so the people that I admire most in terms of songwriting all pretty much unanimously say the same thing, that it's something you have to do daily. Like journaling, even if journaling is part of your creative process, like it's it's a practice, and you need to make the time to practice it, to do it every day. And you'll hopefully yield the results you want. And I can't say that I've been doing that, but again, identity crisis. I'm just trying to like finally get back into a routine, and hopefully not living in a van every day will give me somewhat of a routine. Although, man, I love that. I love being in the van.
But
I
I'm
miss
sure
it.
there's a certain routine to that, is that you could set your own hours, but like, okay, I have to get up, like, got to make breakfast in the thing, in the van. And then, okay, if I've used the restroom or whatever, maybe you have to like go through the like flushing process, or like, if you're at a campsite or not at a campsite, okay, I got to be out of here before, if it's BLM land, maybe it doesn't matter. But if it's on the side of the road, like, oh, I got to make sure I'm on my way before, the sheriff comes or whatnot, or there's a certain routine in that. But I
Mhm.
guess it shifts. But I was gonna say there was a question, I was follow-up question to the songwriting, but now it'll come back to me. But
Well, I can follow up to this camping stuff
sure,
and
yeah. So
routine.
so talk about the routine that you sort of created on the road. Like, you decided to stay in certain areas a certain number of days, or just kind of how?
I mean, I I sort of went out without too much of a plan, but I think I got good at it. And yes, I did create somewhat of a routine. I didn't stay at campsites most of the time. I was boondocking, which is illegal in the most, for the most part, but people have to know that you're boondocking in order to get you in trouble. But I was pretty stealthy. I'm not in a camper. I'm in a cargo van. So it just doesn't look like a camper parked in the middle of the city or whatever. Um, but yeah, normally I would kind of like scope out where I wanted to stay, like while it was still light out. And then my schedule was such that if I was teaching, especially if I was on the East Coast, because I spent a lot of time in Florida, um, or if I was in East Coast time, I I would be teaching till 10 p.m. because that was 7 p.m. in Seattle. And so I wouldn't actually like park at my sleeping spot until 11 midnight. And by that time, like I can kind of see where other people, just
Things have
regular
settled
cars and
in.
things, are parked, so
Yeah,
I'm not going to like stick out as much. So
right.
yeah, I would always just kind of try to, when I was like urban camping, I would always try to just blend in with everyone else. And then you just kind of, you stay quiet, you go in your headphones and chill out. And I liked that schedule because I kind of had like all of the daylight hours to explore or to drive. And then when it was nighttime, then I was kind of hunkered in teaching and doing that whole thing. So that worked out. I think to comment though on like the routine and music and writing as a practice and stuff, I sort of feel like what I was doing in the van and all the like physical stuff I was doing, even like cleaning all the time. You live in a small space, so you're always like rearranging and putting the bed away and doing this and setting up the cute, there's just a lot of things to shuffle at all times. I feel like that to me was a really nice distraction from the fact that I had lost the majority of my career, so like I kept busy. I was always like looking up on my phone like where I wanted to go to next, what I wanted to check out, what I wanted to explore. So I was like doing a lot of research at all times and kind of just planning day by day, and that was a nice distraction from being a musician or feeling the pressure to be a musician. And now I'm ready to shift the focus. I'm ready to start thinking about me and my goals and my career, but I'm not letting go of the van. She's still with me, but I'll probably make shorter trips. I probably won't be gone for like a year at a time. So we'll see though. I do love it.
Yeah, you can never give up life on the road. So I was going to ask you about settling down in Nashville. Obviously, you have some connections there, and you were in a country band before, but a lot of musicians, just like any entertainment thing, the default is Los Angeles or New York, right? And I'm sure you've tossed it around and you have connections in Los Angeles. What made you choose Nashville over something like, hey, I want to go big. I want to go LA. I want to get into the music industry, right? Like, what about Nashville appeals to you?
Yeah, LA seemed pretty logical for me for a while, and I was kind of like resisting the LA movement. I think it's easy when you're on the West Coast already. There's that pipeline, there's the I-5. You're just like, so many people are traveling up and down the West Coast. And so I feel like I had a lot of contacts and connections there. Although, honestly, aesthetically, I do not like LA. I don't like that city. I don't like the fucking sunshine all the time. Like, I don't know. It's just not my vibe. I'm not a California coast girl by any means.
Like you can enjoy the beach, but just the Los Angeles layout is just not your
kind of not really though. I'm not a beach girl.
Okay.
Usually when you're on the beach, you have to like sit in the sun, and I'm not a sitter. I'm like a climber. I want to like go on a mountain and like
you go jump in the ocean
rocks.
and
yeah, that could be
toss around
fun.
the waves.
So, but I was resisting that movement, and I think like I've just come to know a lot more people in Nashville, and in the van, I probably made 3 separate trips here in the past year and continue to meet people and also see my peers like properly working in the industry and being in a position that I wanted to be in. And so I think you understand that like this industry is so much about who you know and who you're connected to. And so this just felt logical. I'm like, this is truly where I know the most people aside from the Twin Cities and Seattle. LA's the close next, but like, Minneapolis, Seattle, Nashville. So, and the cost of living is a little bit less than Seattle and LA. So
yeah, for real. Yeah, no, exactly. But I also think that, I've actually never been to Nashville. I've been to Memphis. But also just from a music standpoint, obviously it's dominated by country, but a lot of people don't realize that it's not like, coming from, a Californian here, like, oh, it's just country music. It's in the middle of the country. It's country. It's Nashville, Tennessee, but it's like, it's actually, there's a lot of different types of music scenes in Nashville. And also just the culture of like, almost anywhere you go to eat, there's a band playing, right? Like there's music, there's live music everywhere. And I don't know how much it's changed during COVID. And I know I don't want to get too political, but some states are more lenient with COVID restrictions. So I'm sure there's been more live music out there than here. But again, not only surrounding yourself with other musicians you play with, but how do you feel like that? Like where like anywhere you go, there's just music everywhere, right? It's just a musically heavy music plays a very integral part in just the city itself, right?
Yeah. And it's not only the live music aspect, but like when you talk to anyone at a bar, like chances are they're in the music industry. When I went shopping at the Kroger, like I don't know who was in the music industry, but I was like, everyone's like my age. I've never gone to a grocery store and felt like, especially like a Kroger. Maybe if I went to, I don't know, like a Whole Foods, there's all the young hipsters there, but like it's at the Kroger and I was like, where are all the old people
Or
that I
Trader
normally
Joe's,
see at
right?
like the Safeway? Yeah. I'm like, everyone's my age. I think it's, a young city in that respect. And I think, yeah, the more people I end up meeting and talking to, it's almost like surprising when they're not in the industry. I've definitely had help in the last couple weeks getting sort of filtered into the venues that don't really do country because
Yeah.
it's not my interest. And but it's also not hard to find that. Like that's the thing is like, yes, people know and understand that like country music industry is here, but broader, like the industry is here, the labels, the studios, and like every touring act comes through Nashville. Like every pop touring act comes through Nashville, And so all of a sudden, like I was at a friend's house last night and I looked around and I was like, whoa, these guys play for Katy Perry. It's like pop music is here in Nashville. So yeah, I'm trying to just surround myself with that more than the country thing. I don't hate country, but it is kind of a, I don't know if it's a stereotype or what, but it's a understanding of Nashville that, I will help squash because I think a lot of the generation above me, especially didn't necessarily understand why I'm moving out here as a non-country musician. People think that you're like making it if you're playing on Broadway in Nashville, but it's just one thing that you can do. It's not something that I want to do. But yeah, it caters to tourism and the tourists come to hear country music, but there's so much more going on. I wish I could speak more on it, but I'm 2 weeks in to life here. So
But it's not your
I have
first
so
time
much
in
to understand.
Nashville. You've been to Nashville before, right? So you've already
Yeah.
sort of planted some seeds and got the lay of the land in a way, right?
Yeah. And most of my time was during the pandemic and during even more of a shutdown period. I remember it was this time last year. It was like last January. I had my first indoor meal since the pandemic, like indoor restaurant meal since the pandemic because Seattle was so shut down. Nashville was a little more lax. And so yeah, I mean, for the most part, the only restrictions out here are like some places require masks, but capacity is, they're not really concerned with capacity at this point. So now we're at a position where like things are happening and I can actually, now that I'm here, I can actually start experiencing what's going on, even though there is a pandemic. It's not the way that I was experiencing it on my trips last year. It's a little more opened up, if that makes sense.
Does that make you apprehensive? I mean, is that in the back of your head, or are you not as concerned? Are you just like, well, I'm going to stay protected the way I can, but I got to get out there and play and be as careful.
It's been a really weird thing to literally travel from Seattle to Florida during a pandemic. Like I feel like I saw
totally different.
The most extreme ends of the spectrum of, being conservative or cautious or whatever. I personally, my concern has gone down being out here. I had COVID in October when I was in Seattle. I got pretty wildly sick actually. And I think my concern is like being around old people and family and whatever. But to be honest, man, in the last few weeks in Nashville, I've known so many people who have been sick with COVID and, they're fine. It's happening, but it's just like, it's just part of it. And part of me is like, I can't not try to get my foot in some of these doors because of that. But I am still very much aware of like, if there's a chance that I might be sick. I'm not going out trying to spread it, but I also truly don't think it's going to kill me. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many unknowns still, but yeah, people are kind of going out in their regular lives.
Yeah. Now,
point.
were you vaccinated when you got it or not vaccinated?
I was vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, but you still got a little sick, right?
Yeah. And I think, honestly, the most confusing and difficult part about that in October was I was back in Seattle and I was getting a lot of calls for gigs. And so the week I got sick, I had two pretty big gigs that I was looking forward to. And the moment I started to feel ill, I went and got tested and my test came back negative. And we're in a position where we're not, sorry, I punched my microphone. We're in a position where we're not on a strict lockdown anymore. And we do have to work and make money, and people are counting on us to like put on these shows if we're able. And so if I have a negative test, I'm like, okay, I guess I have a cold. And I still I told my band at a rehearsal, I was like, hey, I tested negative, but I do have a cold. I'm going to wear a mask. You guys can do whatever. They all masked up. We had a rehearsal. I didn't sing that much, just to kind of save my voice for the show. And then it wasn't until a few days after that show where I'm at a sound check for a sold out show that I was playing at Numos in Seattle. And I was like subbing for this band. So I put a lot of time into like learning these songs. We were really happy for how everything sounded. And, they all knew that I had been feeling sick, but it wasn't until I was on stage for this sound check. We all had masks on. There's barely anyone in the venue at that point. I'm always drinking coffee at sound check, and I'm like taking sneaky drinks of my cold brew. And I was like, man, this cold brew sucks. This is like not good. And cold brew is supposed to like put hair on your chest. Like that is like the real coffee. And then I was like, oh no, I think it just tastes like nothing. Oh no. And then that's when that feeling was so foreign to me. So then I actually I had parked my van at the venue, and I was kind of having this moment inside my head where I was like, oh, maybe I have COVID. I didn't even think to get tested again. Like I'm relying on this negative test saying that, you're good to go. You probably have a cold, because we have to work. Like we have to be out in the world. So if we're getting negative tests, we go on with our lives. And it was that moment where I'm like, shit, this isn't good. So I kind of made my green room my van, and I popped on stage with my mask on, played my 40 minutes, didn't have to sing or anything, and then popped right out, and then got tested the next day. And yeah, it was positive. And then I think I finally gave myself permission to like feel sick and be sick. Yeah. And I was miserable because I think I was trying to just I was like, I got a cold, I'm fine, we can do this. But then when you finally like sit with it, you're like, oh my gosh, I feel terrible. And I did. So yeah, that was gnarly. That was when we were all hearing about Delta. So I'm pretty sure that knocked me on my ass. And now we're hearing about Omicron, and that, I don't know. So a lot of people I've known lately that have gotten sick haven't been wildly sick, which is great. But it's just something we're just continuing to learn so much about it. But I think, I mean, just to reiterate, like the trickiest thing was just like then feeling a lot of guilt that I went out and played these shows
exposed to other
while
people.
And again, I was trying to let everyone know like, hey, I'm sick, I don't have COVID, I'm wearing a mask, this and that. And as far as I know, everyone that I encountered didn't get sick.
Because you were still being careful. You still kept the mask on.
And I texted everyone in the venues and, told them. And, so I was like, check in with yourself and your health. And if you want to get tested, like go do that. But this was my experience. I'm sorry. I had a negative test at first. And like, I got a teeny tiny little bit of backlash from like, oh, you shouldn't have been playing shows at all. You shouldn't have done this. And I'm like, well, it's just, there's kind of no hard and fast rule. Like it's, so I was feeling a lot of guilt for like doing any of it. But at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a career and I'm trying to make money and I'm trying to, so it's more confusing now that we're not in like a strict don't leave your house lockdown. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. This is Sam Jack, your host. Make sure to subscribe to us. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Sam Jack Podcast. Thank you so much. You can find us on YouTube. Our channel is Viral Media Network 415. The playlist is the Sam Jack Podcast. I'm not a professional, but wait, I am. Check out all the other great playlists on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the interview. I mean, it is crazy. I mean, I think we're eventually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, there's so many things you could say about like how we blundered it, how we didn't get ahead of it at the front, and the anti-maskers. I just don't even want to go down that road in this conversation. But I think the key is that, you know, we just got to stay vigilant, not freak out when we get it. But I think aside from all the whole COVID talk, I think you just hit a good point of living this life as a freelancer or a creative professional or musician or whatnot, is that we're so working for the next gig and looking forward, and like we don't have sick days the same way people have them in 9 to 5s. Like, oh, I could just take a few days off, I'm not feeling good, pay time off, or blah blah blah. Like, we have to work through it. So it's like when we work through little colds and stuff like that all the time during pre-pandemic, and then when you finally get sick, and I've experienced this plenty of times, you, like you said, you really do get sick because you're finally allowing yourself to be like, okay, I need to spend this time resting, right? It's not only recuperating from the sickness, but it's also like you're so go, and we have funky hours sometimes, or we're up late at night playing a concert or whatever. So it's like you allowing yourself to rest and recharge. And it sounded like, the nomadic van life was part of that too, in a long-term space of like, you needed to physically just decompress and just go off on your own and have that solemn moment. So
yeah, and the van was a nice thing to have when you need to isolate. So that worked out great. Once I actually knew that I had COVID and needed to get away from people, I was like, well, if I have to isolate, I might as well like be in the mountains. So I did that. I just fucked off and went to the mountains. It was great. Sorry, can I say that word on this podcast? What are the
Absolutely. Rules? Absolutely. This is a no holds barred podcast. So on the note of road trip and van life, I want to ask you about 2 classic books that are near and dear to my heart as far as road trip books. So have you read the classic Jack Kerouac, On the Road?
No.
You haven't? Okay.
No, and even if I did, I would have listened to it.
Yeah, I actually just got it from the library, Audio CD. The Audio CD is great. It's narrated by Matt Dillon.
Great. Don't know who that is, but
well, because you're a young lassie. Matt Dillon was. It's funny because the name sounds a lot like Matt Damon, but he was like kind of a heartthrob. He's a same age as Ethan Hawke. If you know Ethan Hawke.
Are these all actors?
Yes.
I literally don't watch movies. I'm
really
the worst person to talk to about actors or pop culture music.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I did not know that about you. So, but anyways, he's got a good narrative voice. It's a good one. So, okay. Great. You don't know that book. That's okay. That's a classic Beat Generation, Jack Kerouac, On the Road. You got to check that one out.
I love this because I'm trying to get more suggestions, because I will listen to a book. Like I drive a lot, you know what I mean?
Perfect. So you're going to love it because it's a road trip book. It's basically about these 2 guys that just go back and forth cross country out to San Francisco. It takes place in the late 40s, early 50s. So it's that pre-hippie, what they call the beatnik generation. Lots of artists and writers and poets, they all migrated out to San Francisco, and it kind of was the start of that hippie 60 generation. But anyway, so the other one, which is another good one, is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. You know that one?
That sounds like nothing I'd be interested in, but tell me more.
It's about a father and son, so it is kind of male oriented, but you could I thought it would actually be cool to do a remake of it, and instead of flipping the script and having it be a mother-daughter, but it's basically a father who is into motorcycles and does road trips with his friends. He takes his son, who's about 15 coming of age, takes him on a road trip and teaches him not only about doing road trips and seeing the country, but also maintaining your bike and the mechanical aspect of maintaining a motorbike. And so it's all about kind of like being a musician is like, you have to be kind of engineer. You got to know how to do, while you can take it in and have it professionally fixed or whatever, is like, there's some aspects that you need to be part mechanic to your equipment. Right. So it's like, and then how you can apply that to your life. Right. Like, and in your case, it was about like keeping your van tidy. Right. Like, so it's a good book.
No, I feel like I can relate. I did not only keep my van tidy, but I had to fix a lot of shit because I'm going to be honest, the guy who did the build out did a really bad job on a lot of things, and it really held me back for a while. I'm so glad that we haven't really had a chance to talk about this because it makes me so angry. But I actually did waste a lot of my travel time trying to remedy basically a vehicle that I got bamboozled on because it was a piece of shit.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay. I learned a lot. So yeah, I could probably listen and relate, not to a motorcycle, but to putting work into my own vehicle.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. I'm gonna get those names again off the air. I'll have you message me. Gotta write everything down.
Okay, great. Absolutely. And I know we're almost out of time because we're almost pushing 2 hours, believe it or not. We've been at it for a little over an hour.
I can
here.
be so chatty sometimes.
Yeah. No, it's great. So if you wouldn't mind, you do have your keyboard in front of you. Would you mind playing us a song or two to close us out?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Can you hear this?
Yeah, that sounds great. Question or whatever.
Right.
So you don't have to
make it professional.
But no, wait, I know.
Is this video going anywhere? Does this video go anywhere?
Yeah, it's going to be a video podcast. So, but I also put out an audio version like on Spotify. You know what I mean? I put it as many places as I can. Yeah.
Good. I wore my best overall for today.
Yeah, and I liked your necklace too. It's a little crescent moon or something.
Yeah, I did double necklace. This one's leather. I don't know. I see people wearing multiple pieces of jewelry. Okay, so this is actually the song that I smashed stuff to. It's called You Lied, and I like it because it does relate to what we've talked about. Like, actually my mom heard this and she's like, you're like Taylor Swift writing these songs about these boys who did you dirty. And I'm like, okay, first of all, the first verse is about a boy. The second verse is about my roommate who kicked me out of my house. And the third verse is about my therapist, who is also a woman. So it's not all about boys who did me dirty. Just to be clear, that's not all that females write about. But it does come from a place of, I was mad. All these people lying to me. Hey, let's see if I don't fuck up the lyrics. Oh, and the video might bounce a little bit because that's just where we're at in our.
I think it's okay.
Okay. All right.
It's like, it's sound vision. It moves with the sound. It moves with the sound waves.
Great. Oh, and I'm gonna, okay. Here we go. You said you liked me, but you lied. Said I'm the best thing in your life. And I believed your stupid mouth and all the bullshit that came out. You had me fooled. I can't believe I thought you cared and truly wanted to be there. 'Cause when you're so fond of yourself, there's no room for someone else. I see you now. Does this feel like a game to you? Why'd you wanna play me so bad? I've been showing my cards to you, but now I'll keep them closer to my chest. Said I could live here, but you lied. Made us a home that felt real nice. And all the while you're You pushed me out. You never had my best in mind. Now I look back on wasted time. You're moving on, but I'm the one being put out on my own. I'm forced to fold. Does this feel like a game to you? Why'd you wanna play me so bad? I've been showing my cards to you, but now I'll keep them closer to my chest. Oh. I take your advice, but you lied. Made me let go and not think twice. 'Cause when I let myself allow, I'm exposed to hurt somehow. And I can't heal. No, I can't heal. Because you lied. That's it.
Hey.
And then just
Oh, that was-
smash.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I think send me a link to the video and we'll
Yeah.
lay it over. Not completely because that was a beautiful performance. Very raw and intimate, and I was like, oh gosh, like I'm getting this personal concert like right here, just a solo concert.
I know, I didn't know what to look at. I was like,
no, this is you did great. No, this is great. But of course, it's not just going to me. This is going to emanate out, and this is a quick plug. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on YouTube. There's other places. Check the link below. But anyways, that was great. And what's the name of that song again?
It's called You Lied. And it's actually funny when I wrote it, I had the idea of how I wanted it to sound, and it was not on my instrument. So I immediately called my buddy Robbie Christmas, and I was like, he's a guitarist, an amazing songwriter, vocalist. And I was like, Robbie, I need you to play a guitar on this because I don't want piano on it whatsoever. So this is like a very unique version of it because it wasn't my vision. But now I'm kind of like taking it back to piano. It sounds a little cheesy, but I like the cheese factor and the like anger factor. So
I was gonna say remix.
Remix, exactly.
So I have a few follow-up questions real quick because if you'd love to play another one, that'd be great. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know we're pushing up against it, but in your songwriting process, how much of it is drawn from real life and how much of it is like kind of like, oh, if I have like sort of more of a fantasy idea in your head?
Honestly, like it's generally derivative of real life or begins that way, and then I sort of like extrapolate on it. This one's pretty literal. I wanna get better at writing from other perspectives, but again, it's just like a practice that I don't do. So I've always been a person that's like written when inspired as opposed to like forcing myself to do it. So most of it just comes from my own experience.
Yeah. Well, I feel like if that's pure and you really nurture that, other people feel that same way, maybe not the exact same way, but like if you're able to show that raw emotion and that raw pureness, other people are going to relate to that. And I think a lot of times that's what really hooks people when they listen to it, is because like, oh, I've been there before. I know exactly what she's talking about, kind of thing, as opposed to reaching for something that you're not necessarily as connected to. So, but it also is good. I think you're right to, sort of think outside of the box and think outside of your own perspective. That definitely, reaches us out into new levels. And then I also just wanted to quickly ask what the makeup of your band is, because you mentioned guitar, you play on the keyboard, piano, what drums, bass, what's the makeup?
Man, it's crazy. I kind of do what the gig calls for. So my home turf configuration is a 4-piece. So it's me, bass, guitar, and drums. I had a saxophonist play in lieu of a guitarist recently, and that was super fun.
I grew up playing sax.
Yeah, recently I did a show just as a trio. But honestly, sometimes it's about the money too. And I was like, I'm not bringing a 4-piece. Sorry, you only get 3 for that price.
The larger the band, the less slices.
Yeah,
of
more mouths to feed. So sometimes it's literally just like, I don't know, whatever makes sense for the gig. I try not to do the same exact thing every time. But I've also like not been performing in a band capacity for a long time. I mean, I probably played, I don't know, three actual shows with a band since the pandemic. So
yeah, you've been forced to strip down. Yeah.
So it's been very different.
Awesome. All right, we got one more, or do we have to get going here soon?
No, we can
Are you
do
on
one
time?
more. I actually I have to be sitting here in the same setup and configuration teaching piano lessons. So as long as I have
15
time
minutes?
as long as I have time to hang up the Zoom call.
Perfect. Well, you
I'm
might want a
good.
little break in between, just mentally. So
I just have one, and then I have a break, and then another one, and then I'm good. No, I feel like warmed up.
awesome.
My student's gonna be like, "Why? How many coffees have you had?" I'd be like, "No, I've actually been talking for hours."
You just had a conversation with Sam Jack, and there you go.
Usually she's my first one, but she's gonna be overwhelmed by this energy. Yeah, I'll do one more. It's so funny. I'm like, just don't mess it up. This song was, I feel like, written earlier in the pandemic. It's called Comfort Zone. This was when I was still at my house that I loved, and I was like, you know what? I have to be home all the time. Let's just like be happy being in this space. It's okay to like be happy in your home and just feel safe and give yourself permission to just like be here and exist. So Comfort Zone. It's also kind of cute. Sometimes life gets lonely, as can be. With me, my one and only, it's all I need. Some might wanna change it, while others rearrange it. But I know where I'm staying. I'm not leaving my comfort zone, not leaving my comfort zone, not leaving my comfort zone. These 2 chords, they suit me. Well, that suffice. Why would I look further if it feels right? Some might try to wander and look for something better, to learn that I am fonder, not leaving my comfort zone, not leaving my comfort zone, not leaving my, maybe I'm in danger of losing touch. Maybe I'm okay with giving up. These 4 walls confine me, they keep me bound. Some might try to wander and look for something better, to learn that I am fonder, not leaving my comfort zone, not leaving my comfort zone, not leaving my comfort zone. Okay, nobody would ever know, but I did miss my favorite lyric in there, but that's okay. I did a repeat, but I think at the end, I do, though I'm not complaining, at best I am maintaining. At best, I'm maintaining. Like, that's as good as I can get at this point in my pandemic comfort zone life. And like, that's okay. Anyway, I didn't say that lyric. I said something else that came before. That's just okay. Where we're at right now.
It sounded fluid. No, but I mean, I think that's a good lesson. And we all had to just mentally check out and be like, you know what, this is a time that we hunker down. We really appreciate people that had a 9 to 5. They were like, hey, this working from home, now most people are staying working from home. They realize that the office job, the secret that we already knew, it's for the day walkers, as I like to say, but but no, it's great. And it's great. Just that little end there being, a lot of people who aren't musicians or strive to be at the level that you're at, is that like seeing that process of like, oh, how is a sentence, or how is a music formed, and breaking it down, going back to the phrasing, and really like seeing the stripped down version. So it's great. And I really appreciate your time. I think that, we've had a lot of insight here and a lot of takeaways, not only for other musicians, but other people in the creative live event space, or, like if you're in my more video production world. But it's the same kind of thing as far as being a freelancer, trying to make, entrepreneurs, right? Like trying to make a place for yourself in this world and your own stamp. So I really appreciate the time that you've had on here, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself as well.
It's been really fun. I hope I've said like a thing or two that's been interesting. Absolutely. Or insightful. Absolutely. Or maybe, dare I say, brilliant? Probably not though. But it's been really weird. I'm like, I have so many questions for you. What's going on in your life? And we're just going to have another moment to like properly catch up.
Yeah. I mean, you can real quick. I can brief you in, but we won't bore the listeners unless they want to hear more about me, but you have a whole child, don't you? Yes. And she's going to be 3 in April. Yeah. And she's gorgeous.
Oh, what's her name?
Zipporah.
Oh, that's pretty.
Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, so you met Rosa. Rosa was my at the time, and we were at the time also going out for maybe 3 years at the time, and now it's been 10, 12 plus years, and we've been married since 2017, so almost 5 years. And yeah, we got a house and have a baby, and she started her own business, so that's another motivation.
I know. I'm so curious about that too. That sounds super interesting.
Yeah, well, that started like a hobby, and it was one of those things where
and now you have a baby grand.
Exactly. And she started just collecting in our upstairs attic, converted, where I'm up now is converted attic, basically. Is like just got cluttered with her stuff. It's like, you got to start selling some of the stuff. And then eventually she slowly leveled up, just like we all do as we freelance. And now she's finding stuff that she might be paying a few $100s for, but now she's selling it for a few $1,000s, so just finding that's really the dream. That's like the dream hustle, honestly. Yeah.
Good for her.
But I'm sure you've attested, there was a time where you were charging for your lessons a certain amount, and now that your worth amount, you've leveled up and you charge what you're worth, right? Like there's a certain bottom line that you have, right?
You gotta know your worth. Oh man, that's a whole different thing with artistry, but you gotta know your worth. And if you don't, you're doing a disservice to the rest of our industry. The musicians who are going out there charging jack shit because they, I don't know, can or want to, it's like, no, then you're making people expect that that's what they should pay for your craft, and it's not. And so it's ruining everything for us. So anyway, that's a whole.
You're selling yourself short, and you're setting the bar lower for everyone else. It's
So I mean, know your worth and fucking hustle and buy those thrifted vintage things and flip them and sell them for $1 million.
Something like that. Well, Leah, thank you so much for coming on the show. We hope to have you back, and I'm gonna come visit. Going.
I mean, know, I'm still a nomad at heart, so I'll definitely be in the Bay Area at some point, hopefully with more of a plan and more.
Please do. We've got a spare bedroom, and we'll just you'll just have to barter our way. You just have do some babysitting barter, you know. So
Okay, that's fine. Although I
Rose
usually
and
bring I usually bring my own bedroom.
Oh
But-
yeah, well that too. Yeah, totally.
So if you got a parking spot, you know, that's a luxury. If you have a parking spot, we're
Absolutely.
good. We're good to go. Yeah. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for reaching out. This has been so much fun.
My pleasure. And where can people find you online, or if they're in Nashville, they want to see you live, or if you have a, you know, any sort of link, videos, YouTube channel?
Yeah, Leah T Music is the hub for the old school website goers, LEAHT Music. My favorite social platform at the moment is Instagram, and that's at Leah Twos, the first part of my last name, LEAHTOUS. And I'm posting music and van stuff. So those are my favorite spots. But if you go on the website, you'll get links to everything else. And yeah, because I'm on everything, because you have to be on everything.
I know.
I've been TikToking,
Drives.
you know, whatever.
I've gotten on TikTok. Yeah. You know, that's when you really look in the mirror when you're over 40 and you're on TikTok. Okay. So don't get to where I'm at.
I'm not showing enough midriff to really have any success on TikTok. The overalls and turtleneck just aren't.
No, it's great. No, it's great. You got a great look. It's good. So thank you again. And all that information will be on the bottom of your screen so you can check it out.
Word.
We'll see you next time. Leah, thank you so much for being on the Sam Jack podcast.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.